Well, hello there, and welcome to day 38 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. As today, I'm back to the usual setup after my slightly rushed, late-night, bleary-eyed discussion on Deadly Prey. I thought I'd better go for something classic and traditional. And so I watched Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, the 1954 Stanley Donen musical. So this is my second foray into musicals of this series after Singing in the Rain. Funnily enough, I've gone for the same director, but this is definitely the litmus test of the as I mentioned in the Singing in the Rain discussion of, is it close enough to On the Town to Hurt Me, which also was directed by Stanley Donen. However, it was not. As in, it was not On the Town. This was much, much easier a watch. So, where to start with this? So this is, I think, my first Howard Keel film, who plays the lead, well, the closest thing to the lead, as in the oldest brother Adam of the Seven Brothers, who begins our film. He has a wonderful baritone. Wonderful. Like, I genuinely can see why he ended up being this sought-after Hollywood star of the time, because he just has this timbre in his voice that is definitely listenable. And, of course, Jane Powell, who plays Millie, who ends up being the wife of Adam and the first of the Seven Brides. In terms of musical stylings, she did do the thing that it turns out, I'm going to verbalise something I don't like in musicals, as we start to chart this to work out exactly what I do and don't like. One of the things that I don't like is a vibrato. We were talking about this after the film, and I think it comes down to the fact that Snow White, the classic Disney film, is a incredibly difficult sit for me. I find it it is a very hard thing, and part of the reason is not just the fact that it is a classic film, but it is a pioneer, you might say, a pilot. And unfortunately, one of the aspects is the vibrato of Snow White is not good on my ears, and I think it's somewhat affected any vibratos, especially 1950s style, that I hear, and definitely in this film. So, but Jane Powell doesn't always sing like that, and she does have a wonderful voice, so don't get me wrong. It's just, there were one or two songs that I found quite hard sits. The Western musical genre is it's quite clear that they were natural bedfellows. It must have been, it was probably a decision of the time that because the musical of the 1950s and the Western of the 1950s were such prominent genres, that bringing them together was just a logical next step. And since then, it's the Western musical is a common subgenre. I mean, back then you would have had Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, and You Get Your Gun. There's one more that's really famous, and the name's gone out of my head, but it doesn't. My point.
Calamity Jane.
Calamity Jane. Which takes us all up to present day, where we have things like The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, which, to my shame, is probably one of the first Western musicals I saw, even though it was a film of last year, the Coen brothers film. And as much as I very much liked it, I'm now appreciating that it is most appreciated as a genre by people who had a knowledge and love of Western musicals and the tropes therein. Although I did very much enjoy The Ballad of Buster Scruggs at the time. It's a shame, really. I would like to see the Western musical style. I was thinking as I was watching that I would love to see a Moulin Rouge style jukebox musical where you take contemporary songs or songs of the last decade, say, that are really famous pop culture pieces, but retool them into a Western, into sort of Western instruments and the Western musical stylings, and some kind of musical in that style. I think that would be really cool, and like the Western generally, which has really fallen by the wayside, the Western musical is also something that has floundered in the last couple of years, with the one exception. As I said when I discussed On the Town in my Singing in the Rain video, one of the things that I don't get on with so well, or at least it doesn't stir me, and so I find it more difficult, is the musicals of the 50s and seemingly the Stanley Donen musicals are very much a pairing of, you have your songs, but you have your dance numbers. And as much as I enjoy a dance number, it doesn't stir me. Now, there is a very famous, incredibly well choreographed sequence in Seven Brides for Seven Brothers where your six of your brothers, who are all seeking wives. Now, of the actors, we discussed this, and Helen outlined for me, 4 of them were dancers. One of them was a professional acrobat, dancer, just Cirque du Soleil all around. And one was what was he? A footballer? No,
baseball player.
Baseball player turned actor. And quite notably, he tends to sit out of a lot of the dance sequences, or it's pushed to the side in a convenient way. But there is a very famous dance sequence with the 6 brothers and their potential wives, and it is incredibly elaborate, and even objectively, I have to admit, the effort and work that would go into structuring a dance sequence like that is remarkable. It was definitely a demonstration of showmanship, and the idea that we could see people moving and interchanging in that way. It really carries through. I think nowadays it's the tradition has only really been kept in the martial arts genre, in terms of the idea of intricate choreography where cutting is really kept minimal to showcase the movement of someone. And this is a really nice bridge between the dancing choreography and the fighting choreography, because one of the major themes of the film is how the brothers are slightly rowdy and have a tendency to get into fistfights. But what you notice with their rowdy fistfights is, if you take a step outside of the narrative, you see that the choreography of those fistfights are like dances. There's something really intricate and well-timed, and the effort and work that goes into that is genuinely astounding. Now, a couple of days ago, I saw a film that I said, it was The Conversation, where I said intellectually, I really appreciated it, but it just didn't emotionally stir me quite enough. And this is definitely in that camp where, as I say, I truly appreciated the choreography and the dance moves, but I'm still just not emotionally stirred by dancing. It just doesn't cause the same effect on me that like a beautiful song might. And there are some very, like I say, Howard Keel genuinely does have a remarkable voice, and there are some beautiful songs, but the dancing just doesn't have that same stirring as a musical where I hear a really tender tune sung. But as I say, this is definitely a far reach from On the Town. It was fun. It was a nice sit. and I enjoyed it. It makes me think that I would like to kind of delve into some more serious westerns, as in some, non-musical serious westerns. Although I always veered more towards the '90s western, which has a much more of a serious undertone to it. And I feel like at some point I will do one for this, but we'll see when that happens. When and if that happens. Anyway, thank you for joining me. I'll see you again tomorrow. Take care.